Hi guys, it's Ian again. Thanks for listening. Today we're going to be giving you up to 10 different tips about how to make ourselves safer on the road and more defensive. So thanks for tuning in. So straight into tip number one. Tip number one is escape routes. Now I'm absolutely passionate about escape routes. I think this is something that we really need to all train on as road users. Really important. So what are we talking about? So I'm talking about proactive escape routes here. I'm talking about escape routes that we can take when something goes wrong or before something goes wrong, so that we can avoid the incident in the first place. And essentially it's having space on all four axes of the vehicle. So essentially we're trying to stop two objects colliding, which is very simple. We're trying to provide some security options in order to escape a problem. Options in general to be able to move around and switch lanes easily, and trying to avoid the incident. So in terms of space, what we're talking about this is the four different axes. So number one's in front, number two will be behind, and then three will be to the sides. There is another option as well, which is possibly to stop then reverse, or if you already stopped, to reverse. But we'll come on to that shortly. So essentially what we're talking about, if we talk about the space in front, that's for two things: to accelerate or to brake into, because you'll need some space behind as well in order to brake in normal traffic situations. But I have heard before a number of people turn to me and go, "Ian, it's impossible to escape by accelerating." I passionately disagree with that statement, but let me just explain why. So they give you a scenario: we're on a roundabout, we're halfway through completing we're actually on the roundabout itself, and we have a traffic approaching from the side, and they decide, for whatever reason, that they failed to see us. They have decided to step out. And that means that if we accelerate out of that situation, we could be preventing that incident, because we moved out of the way of that individual before they've come out onto the roundabout. And that's what we mean by accelerative escape routes. That can also work on motorway scenarios. So for example, we have a slip road coming up. For whatever reason, either us or them haven't planned very well. We've got some space in front to be able to accelerate into, and that might prevent the incident. And of course, we're trying to be proactive, but to accelerate sometimes can make that safer. And that's also the same where we're trying to synchronise our speed of traffic when we enter a motorway, for example. Of course, braking is an escape route. You'll notice it's the only one, in the UK at least, that we're actually trained to do. Unfortunately, we do that at a very low speed, 25-30 mile an hour, which is, I say very low, it's still a reasonable speed. But in fact, we drive at much higher speeds than that on motorways, on rural roads, etc. So maybe we need to know how to deliver that braking safely in them high speeds, with a good margin of error, because we don't really get trained on that. But we certainly need to manage the space behind and in front to enable us to do that braking. The other part of that's lateral escape routes. Now that's one thing missing from most training programs, as far as I'm concerned. Miss lateral escape route options. So that's having space to one side to enable us to move around, or to somebody else to move around too. For example, roundabouts are a good example. So if we both enter the roundabout at the same point alongside each other, that means one of us screws up, we're going to come in contact with each other, whether any road user in that particular case. So the ideal is that whichever one vehicle we are offset, whether we're accelerative escape route in front, and we manage that so we can both do a lane switch, or behind. And of course we do have traffic flow to consider. If it's heavy and dense traffic, it's very difficult to do that, so we may not always have that option, but where we can and where it's easy to do, I think we should have that option. We talked about reversing as an escape. Ideally we try and avoid that, but it is an option. It may be a security option as well. It's usually a sign, it can be a sign that we haven't planned very well, which is the whole reason behind escape routes really. We try and have an escape route before the problem occurs, rather than after or during that problem. And of course the final one is all to do with parking as well. So if we park facing into the wall, we would then have to commit ourselves to reversing out of the space, which I find more difficult in terms of security. So if we're facing out of the space, of course, very much more quick on the move away. And again, if maybe someone's followed us from a cash point, or there's some road rage situation, or maybe we even get blocked in a little bit, generally speaking, it's far easier to drive forward out of the space, is why I tend to do it apart from the vision and things like that. Of course, there are them natural benefits to keeping that space, whether it's lateral in front and behind, and to manage it, because we increase view, not just for us but for others as well. We can be seen because we're in a scope of space, people can see us better. We've got an escape route too, and also we can see them better as well because we have more space around us. The other benefit of that is it gives us more time to manage it, an escape route, which we've already spoke about, and of course a flow, enabling flow of traffic. For example, the flow of traffic in the wrong lane is not going to be able to move back into the lane that they want if there's no space for them to do that. So the space is not just for us, it's for others as well. In terms of stopping, I find that quite difficult to comprehend on the way in which we train that at the moment. As I say, we probably don't do it at a high enough speed, but also we don't necessarily quantify that very well as drivers or riders or road users, because of the fact that all different vehicle types have different stopping or following distance issues. So it takes longer to stop a truck, for example, than a car. But what type of car is it? Is it an old car with poor brakes, or is it one with a poor driver in a poor environment, or you know, there are lots of different things going on there. So really we need to understand that a lot better. And the other part of that is having a margin of error on top of the normal stopping distance. Are we going to commit to emergency stop braking at all times, or are we going to have a little bit more to enable to avoid the rear end shunt or to avoid another situation? So talking about not just having enough, but having a bit beyond that, so we've got a margin of error. Also, when we talk about escape options, we're also talking about stationary escape options, and I'm absolutely passionate about that. So when we come into a town centre situation, it's all a bit clogged up with traffic, do we want opportunities to move out of the way for emergency services? Well, yes please. Do we also want options to be able to move out of the way for a rear end shunt scenario? That might be not necessarily in town, it could be on a motorway, so I'm stopped on a motorway exit slip, I've got a truck in front of me, maybe I'm a bit too close to it, but I've got another truck approaching very quickly from behind. I want scope to be able to comfortably move out of the way without full lock, and to blast it out of the way very quickly if I need to. But I'm keeping an eye on what's going on around me, but I want to be able to keep that escape. Without that, of course, I get crushed between two trucks, which has its inevitable consequences. So I certainly want to have that. In town centre, a lot of people argue, well, it's slower speeds. In actual fact, that's where a lot of rear-end shunts happen, because of lack of concentration or a feeling that it's safer. But also we need to be able to escape emergency services. What that tends to also do, by leaving much more space in front to be able to not just move out the way with a full lock, but a little bit of scope and margin of error within that, is also keeps junctions clear, enables traffic to flow a lot better. So yeah, that's escape route. So I don't know what you guys think. Please leave some comments in the box below, and please subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts are. We've got some more top tips coming up shortly, but don't forget, escape routes could save you, could prevent the incident, and that's what I'm absolutely passionate about. We've got another 9 tips coming up shortly, so listen up for those coming up shortly too. Thank you very much for listening. Take care.